Hi, this is Julian for Production Expert with the third in a series of videos that I'm doing on Concept from Krotos, which is a synthesizer plugin that's very capable but also not very intimidating. So if you're not very experienced with synthesis, this is a really good place to start. I've been going through this tune that I've made using nothing but Concept, and I've been going through breaking down how each patch has been made using Concept. And we're up to the snare at the moment. This is the track. And when we get over the slightly portentous intro, we get into a bit with some drums, which are all synthesized. So how is that snare drum made? It doesn't sound that much like a real snare drum, but there's a long tradition of synthesized drum sounds, which, from early synths through to drum machines. And they've got a certain something. And how do you make this? Well, this is a really good place to introduce something that we haven't looked at yet, which is the different waveforms available in the oscillators. Now, we've been looking at things like sawtooth, and we've also got like a square wave, these harmonically rich waveforms that you can then use filtering and other things to take stuff away in the way that you do when you're doing subtractive synthesis, which is what we're doing here. There's some other things like sine waves, which we used when we were creating the kick drum sound. But what I'm going to look at here is the odd one out of these, which is noise. Now, unlike the other waveforms, which are what's called periodic, it means they've got a pitch, they've got a definite note that you can sing when you hear them. Noise is randomly all frequencies happening at once, and because of that, it doesn't have a definite pitch. But it does contain all the frequencies, and you can filter it and do all those other things that you can do. And this is really useful because it makes that kind of hissing, shushing sound that you hear in lots and lots of noises in nature. So we're going to use that for the snare element, the rattling wires against the underside of the drum. So if we turn a few of these things off, we haven't got a great deal to turn off, but we'll get rid of that and we'll get rid of this. And this is what we've got if we go to the section with the drums. Not the most impressive sounding thing so far. And all we've got from oscillator 1, a little burst of white noise, which is going through this amplitude envelope, which is cutting it off more quickly than it otherwise would. So with the sustain all the way up, that sustain level, it's just starting and stopping. But if we pull this down to 0, then we've got just the attack portion, which controls how quickly the sound comes in. Anything from very fast to very slow. And the decay, which is how long it takes to die away. And if that's too long, it starts to become less drum-like, and too quick, it's just a little tick. But somewhere in between, we're getting into kind of drum territory. Great. But to make it sound more drum-like, what we're doing is with the second oscillator, we're using this envelope to introduce a bit of pitch modulation in the same way as we did on the kick drum. This is similar but not identical. What we've got is this. If we listen to this, this is just a sine wave. Not a million miles away from the kick drum sound. Now, if I invert this, because it's inverted modulation at the moment, we can hear what's going on. It's pulling the pitch upwards in response to this long attack in this envelope. But if we invert that modulation, then it's pulling it in the other direction. So it's starting high and coming down very quickly, which is giving a nice bonk, which is what you're looking for from a drum sound. And when combined back in with that noise, and of course we can balance these up for either a fatter or kind of thinner snare. Somewhere around there is actually quite nice. So that's what that is. The only thing that's going on here is some filtering. If we wind this back in, it wasn't 100% actually. I wind it in 100%. It's a low-pass filter, which means that it only lets low frequencies pass through. We also have a high-pass filter, which does, as the name suggests, the opposite. It cuts out the low-frequency stuff. This cuts out the high-frequency stuff. As you can see here, the frequency at which it does that is dictated by the cutoff frequency. We can make a little bump just at that cutoff frequency with the resonance, and we can introduce some distortion. That's much better already compared to that, which is far too hissy. But you can blend somewhere in between. I'm going to go maybe around about there. And the only other thing we've got is a little bit of reverb, but this really is a very, very little bit of reverb. The mix is right the way down, almost at 0. But it is significant. With nothing, it's rather flat compared to... It's putting a little something around it. If I wind that in ever so slightly more, there's a bit of space around it, but taking it all the way down is significant enough to make a difference. So there's our snare sound. The last element of the drums is the hi-hat. There's not a massive amount to say about this because it's fairly similar to the snare. It's a filtered and tightly enveloped noise source. I'm using this first LFO to modulate the filter cutoff just ever so gently, just to add a little bit of variation, because without it, it does start to sound quite repetitive and loses any semblance of kind of performance. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm sidechaining from instrument 1, which is the kick drum, using this modulator, which we haven't seen before, audio input. And what you can do is you can set either the amplitude or the pitch to modulate any parameter. I'm using it to modulate the from the amplitude, so how loud that input is, and getting it to modulate the mix on the filter. And all that means is that we end up with, if I solo it up, and there's a little bit of, the sound kind of comes and goes. Some hits are darker, some are brighter. But if I turn this off, all we're hearing is this tiny little wobble of variation from this LFO. And if I turn this off as well, they're all exactly the same. So that's subtle, but kind of effective use of modulation, just to give a little bit of humanity to this very mechanical drum beat. Across these 3 videos, we covered pretty much all of concept. Something I'm quite aware that I haven't touched on is Tweak It, which is the last of these modulators. It's a really nice feature. What it does is it allows you to randomize parameters, but it allows you to control the extent to which they're randomized, so you don't get completely wild results. Nice thing to use it on actually would be FM, which we also haven't touched on, but we'll leave that for another day. FM can give pretty unpredictable results. So if I can't predict the results, why don't I just kind of shake it and see what I get? So here's what it sounds like if I tweak it. I get something very different because FM ratio and FM depth have been tweaked. They've been randomized, but within these tightly defined ranges, these depths. So if I tweak it again, I get something else. If I tweak it again, I get something different again. I can change the depth of these modulations. So hit that again. I'm starting to get much wilder results. That's Tweak It. Something else that I haven't touched on is exactly how complex can modulations get. By that, I don't mean how many different things can you modulate. I mean, you can modulate everything, but a much more interesting question is, can you modulate a modulator? Yes, you can. Here's a nice example. What I've got is I've got a lead sound, which might have sounded like this without any modulation. I'm using a different sound in the oscillator actually, but there's something else going on here. And we've got a vibrato, but if you notice, the vibrato effect builds as the note comes down. And that's mimicking the thing that the violinists, for example, do if they swell their vibrato as the note goes along. And the way you do that is, this detune. So the vibrato is coming from modulating this detune parameter. That's coming from this LFO. There we go. There's the depth on that. But the depth is being modulated by this red parameter here. So that's this envelope. So as the note comes down, the modulation rises on this red envelope, which is modulating the depth parameter upwards, which is increasing the depth of the modulation the LFO is causing. On the detune effect, we have a modulator modulating another modulator. So that sounds like. And there we are. So let's use that and play the track out with a bit of this. I'll just play off this keyboard at the bottom here. And there's an overview of concept.